Hello and welcome, my dear friends. This is the Zenpreneur podcast with your host, Mario Lanzarotti. Today is a very special day, a long awaited interview that I finally get to present to you. Dr. Larry Farwell, a Harvard educated neuroscientist and author of the bestseller, The Science of Creating Miracles, is renowned for his innovative contributions to neuroscience and quantum physics, recognized by Time magazine among the century's top innovators. He pioneered brain fingerprinting technology. We're going to have a lot to talk about today. This is going to be really exciting. Aiding law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and CIA, in criminal cases and counterterrorism. Larry also developed the first brain-computer interface to aid paralyzed individuals. His work integrates groundbreaking research in neuroscience, quantum physics, and consciousness, offering practical methods through his book, retreats, and courses to help individuals achieve an extraordinary life. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mario. It's delightful to be here, delightful to see you again.
Larry, you have quite the inspiring story, and the bio that I just shared with our listeners doesn't quite do it justice, because you and we've had a few conversations personally, and I understand that you also an avid meditator, a teacher of meditation. You are a shining light in the world of consciousness in the world, and I would love for you to speak into how did you come to be the leader that you are today? What led you there?
Well, really the beginnings of my pursuit of higher states of consciousness began when I was 13 years old. I grew up in a very scientific family. My father was a physicist. I was interested in science from the time I was a little kid. It was always something that I enjoyed, and I wanted to understand the world in a scientific way. When I was 13 years old, I had a near-death experience. I was drowning. I don't mean drowning in I wondered what my life was all about and what I was going to do. I meant drowning as in I was underwater and I was out of breath. I was out of time. And I realized at that point I had a few seconds left to live. So I consciously let go of everything. I knew I could never go back and fix everything, change anything. So I consciously let go of everything, all my plans, all my desires, all my attachments, all my intentions, everything. And at that moment, several things happened that I'd never experienced before. One was my whole life flashed before my eyes, just as clear as this experience right now, except all at once. I'd never realized I could have that expanded a level of consciousness. And I saw myself as this infinite being beyond time and space. I experienced myself as this infinite being beyond time and space. And I felt as though I saw my life for the first time the way it really was. Uh, it's not that I didn't see. Yeah, I could see that it was really perfect. It's not that I didn't see the suffering and the mistakes and all the pain, whatever it was, but I could see that it simply was what it was, and it was perfect in the way that it was. And no regrets at all. Dying at age 13, I thought this is a great life. I finally see it the way it is, and I realized if I could experience my life that way, yeah, it would flow on effortlessly and in tune with nature, in tune with myself. And so at that point, I realized, well, hey, now that I see my life the way it really is, I'm not leaving. I've got something. I've got a life I want to live. I've got something to tell other people, to share with other people. I'm not out of here. I need a miracle, and I need it. I need it really right now in a matter of a few seconds. And from that level of unbounded awareness, from that level of experiencing myself as this unbounded, infinite being beyond time and space, I had that attention. Okay, I need a miracle, and I got the miracle. I, as you can tell, I did not drown when I was 13 years old. I made it to the surface, and then at that moment, I was coughing and choking and spitting water and gasping for breath and so on, and the experience was gone. The experience of seeing my life the way it really was, seeing me, my own consciousness for who I really am. And so at that moment, I decided that was really what my life was about, to discover how to have that experience permanently and to help other people to gain that experience of enlightenment. And that was really the beginning. And then I spent many years studying and for after about 6 years, I really thought I was an expert in all of this stuff. I didn't realize that I was at the pre-kindergarten stage, but I'd done all the courses, I'd done all the techniques, I read all the books. I really thought I knew it. And then I met Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's the founder of Transcendental Meditation. And I thought, oh my gosh, now I find someone who's actually experiencing the level of enlightenment that I thought I knew something about. So I learned Transcendental Meditation from him. I spent years with him uh, in different capacities. I helped with the teacher training courses. I traveled with him and so on. And I learned a tremendous amount from Maharishi about higher states of consciousness. And I became more and more interested in creating a bridge between the eternal knowledge of enlightenment and higher states of consciousness and the scientific world. Because truth is truth. If something's true, it will have been true 10,000 years ago and last week. And all of the great spiritual traditions tell us that the inner field of pure consciousness, which is our essential nature, is the same as the ground of being, or what we now call the conscious unified field of quantum mechanics that gives rise to the particle wave phenomena that make up the physical universe. If that's the case, that would explain how I could create a miracle while I was drowning. And that would explain really how we create our lives. Because if that's the case, it makes sense that it stands to reason that if we create a resonance on the level of our own consciousness within, that can move nature, move the conscious unified field. It's as if you have a guitar, you pluck a string, it sets up a resonant frequency. Other instruments in the environment with a similar resonant frequency will begin to vibrate in harmony, and then you have a whole symphony. Well, all of the wise people for 10,000 years or more have told us that's how we create our lives. And whatever book came out last week about how to be successful, they'll often say the same thing. We create this inner vision, we move nature, we move our consciousness, or we move what I now call the conscious unified field. That shows up in our life. But no one had ever explored that in the scientific laboratory. We've all had, so I'm getting to the answer to your question. We've all had experiences like, well, I'd really like to hear from Joe, and the phone rings just then, and it's Joe. But we don't know, we can't say that's a scientific experiment because we don't know the probability that would have happened anyway. We do know the probability, the exact probability distribution of alpha particle emission by plutonium, which is something known in physics. And my dad, plutonium is one of the major one of the major ingredients of the atomic bomb. My dad was one of the guys who developed the atomic bomb at the Manhattan Project. So we took plutonium and we conducted an experiment to see if we could influence the probability distribution of alpha particle emission by plutonium. Now, the reason we want to do that is because that's a quantum mechanical process. The whole universe is quantum mechanical processes, which take place according to the laws of probability. If we can shift that probability distribution, we can shift any probability distribution. We can create improbable events, which really means miracles. And going back to how you would scientifically define a miracle, I was sitting with my dad, physicist, and we were in a restaurant. And I said, "Hey, Dad, anything is possible." And he said, "Yes, son, any imaginable configuration of quantum particle wave phenomena is possible. Some are probable, some are improbable, some are spectacularly improbable, but anything's possible." So I said, okay, so it's possible that the elementary particles that make up my body and yours, and enough air to breathe, will tunnel from here to the other side of the moon, and we'll carry on this conversation there. And tunneling is a known phenomenon in quantum mechanics that can be shown in the laboratory. He said, "You're right. And in fact," and he took out a paper napkin and he wrote down a quick formula and he calculated the probability that that was going to happen. Now, the probability was low and it didn't happen. We stayed in the restaurant. But the point is that even that impossible sounding kind of improbable event is possible in the world of quantum mechanics. So, I mean, the first message that I'd have is that those impossible sounding dreams that that we have, that you have, that your viewers here have, that some people say are completely impossible. Well, scientifically, they are in fact possible. So the question becomes, can we create a miracle? Can we create a highly improbable event using our consciousness? And what we discovered in this research that we did on alpha particle emission by plutonium is that we could create extremely improbable events, off the charts in the statistics books. In other words, we could create quote unquote miracles. We would create a miracle is simply a highly improbable event, and we found that using consciousness alone, we could create that. So then I spent the next 20 years. I wrote a very technical book at that time on the science of all this, and then I spent the next 20 years developing techniques to apply what I call the science of creating miracles in people's lives to be able to systematically and predictably go from creating that inner vision to creating the life that you envision, which is what creating miracles is about. It's really what I think we're here on earth to do, is to create a vision on the level of our consciousness and bring that out into the world.
Wow. There's so much there, and I wanna let you continue that stream of consciousness as you're talking about the science of creating miracles. And I love how you're addressing so many of the listeners, myself included. I think you're one of the you're definitely one of those people is like that turn a dream into a reality, or turn a low probability into a realized actuality. And
Yeah.
so can you speak into more, how can someone that has audacious dreams, that has big goals, make use of these techniques that you're talking about? What does that actually look like to bring it into your day-to-day life?
Okay. Well, the title of my book, in a way, sums it up. My more recent book, my second book, which was much more directed towards addressing that issue, addressing that query. When I wrote my first book on a very scientific book, very technical book on this, a lot of people said, "Well, yeah, that's all great. I'm convinced that consciousness plays a major role in the universe, but that and $5 will get me a coffee at the local coffee shop, Starbucks, if you're here in Seattle." And what people want to know is, well, okay, how do I apply that in my life? So the title of my book, it became a #1 bestseller, is The Science of Creating Miracles, Neuroscience, Quantum Physics, and Living the Life of Your Dreams. And what it is about is exactly the question that you have asked, which is, how do you go from creating a vision within yourself to creating that in the real world? And there is a phenomenon in life which leads us to realize that our life is an experience. Life is a series of experiences. When we create our life, we create a series of experiences. Life is not a series of events, it's a series of experiences. And it's not a series of intellectual understandings. So I can write in a book all about the science of creating miracles, and I can explain on this podcast all about the science of creating miracles. But the experience of creating miracles is an experience, not an intellectual understanding. So you and I will have to compromise to some degree here, in that I can talk about the science of creating miracles and I can talk about some of the techniques, but the actual experience of creating miracles in your life happens in life. It doesn't happen just in hearing about and understanding. But let me get in. With that said, let me get into the fundamental principles. We carry around within ourselves an inner blueprint. And when something seems to be an attack on us or some detriment to our life, it usually seems to be an affront either to our value, our power, or our safety. Let's say somebody comes along and says or does something that seems to be a threat. Usually it'll be a threat to our value, power, or safety. Now we carry around an inner blueprint within ourselves on the level of our consciousness, which says we're only 75% safe and 64% powerful, and 55% valuable, or whatever it is, less than 100%. So we set up that resonance on the level of our consciousness. And over the years, that's the life we create. Now we have all kinds of external evidence, not just our own internal vision. We have external evidence, concrete facts that say I'm not entirely safe. I'm partly unsafe. I'm partly non-valuable. And what we can do to create a shift in that is we can take advantage of the way that the brain learns. And here's a short example of how the brain learns. You're crawling around on the floor and you're 2 years old and you touch the floor, you touch the wall, you touch the table leg. You don't really pick up much from that. I mean, that's all familiar. You don't really learn a lot. You touch the hot stove, and now you have an aha experience. Aha, okay, now something important is going on. Now there's something I need to learn. Now there's something valuable that I need to create a shift in my inner vision of the world. So these aha experiences open up the brain for reprogramming. And one of the things I've done in the neuroscience world, I've spent a good part of my career studying, is a phenomenon, a brainwave pattern, which is known as an energy. I won't even get this right myself. It's a brainwave pattern which corresponds to this aha response. It's called a memory and encoding related multifaceted electroencephalographic response, MER, murmur.
Wow.
And I get my own tongue twisted on that one. The acronym murmur is a little easier to say. And that's what your brain does when you have an aha response. Now, the cool thing about an aha response is it opens up your brain for reprogramming. So let's say that something, actually, I'll give you an example from my own life. I had just been out in my boat, and you can see I'm in a boat now. I love boats. I'd just been out in a boat with a young woman that I was very interested in at the time. And we were sitting on the dock in my house, enjoying a summer sunny day. And this guy came by in a kayak, and he said, "When are you going to get rid of that piece of shit boat out of there? I can't stand it being in my view." Now, my immediate response was, "Well, that's a threat to my value. He's insulted my boat. That's insulting me. It's a threat to my power. It's a threat to my safety. I'm with this woman that I'm interested in. It could be a threat to my entire progeny throughout history. This is a deep threat to me." I mean, that was the knee-jerk response. Now, fortunately, I considered that for a moment, and I thought, well, is this really a threat? Well, actually, no. It certainly doesn't. It's no physical harm to me. His view of my boat has nothing to do with me. It's certainly not going to make any difference in this woman that I'm with. It's not a threat to my value. It's not a threat to my safety or power. And so instead of doing what the knee-jerk response would be to do, which would be to shoot the messenger or punish the messenger or maybe take it internally, oh, maybe I am a horrible person. What I did is what I call transmutation trigger, and it's one of the techniques of science creating miracles. Instead of reacting to something which seemed to be a threat, which, by the way, I had a murmur response. These murmur moments open your mind up for reprogramming. So I took advantage of that. You instead of reacting, take a breath for a minute, take a deep breath, evaluate whether it really is a threat. Now, if the problem is that the house is on fire, well, actually, that really is a threat, and you don't want to settle down to your refined awareness within. You want to run outside the house. But assuming that this aha moment is actually not a threat to your survival, the thing to do then is to, rather than reacting, allow your awareness to go inward. Allow yourself to settle down a little bit within and feel what it's like to be the true Mario. Feel what it's like to be your own self on that quiet level where you know yourself. Socrates said, "Know thyself." On that quiet level of consciousness where your mind is settled, and where you experience who you truly are. Now, on that level, we are the conscious unified field. We are that field that rises in quantum particle wave phenomena to create the universe. You're infinitely powerful, infinitely valuable, infinitely safe when you tune into who you truly are. And that's an inward experience. And that experience takes place by letting go. It doesn't take place by holding on. There are a lot of techniques to try to get what you want in the world that have to do with really pushing it in your awareness and pushing, pushing, pushing. That keeps your mind on the surface level, on the active level. The intellect shouts, the emotions scream, and the intuition whispers. So when you have an aha moment, when you have a murmur moment, if you want to create a transmutation in your inner blueprint, more towards your true blueprint, which is 100% safe, valuable, powerful, you take the awareness inward rather than outward. Allow the awareness to settle in and have that experience of who you really are on a quiet level, on the deep intuitive level. And that shifts then your experience of your inner blueprint to, or at least towards, your true blueprint, which is 100% safe, valuable, and powerful. So then you start to radiate that resonance. Oh yeah, this is I'm 100% safe, valuable, powerful, and this the only thing to be doing here is enjoying a sunny day on the dock with this woman that I appreciate, and not the murmur moment was actually a gift. That every apparent attack on your value, safety, and power is actually, in a way, it's a gift because it gives you a murmur moment. It gives you an aha experience that opens a brain for programming. Well, take advantage of that and tune into who you truly are and start to resonate more of that 100% safe, valuable, powerful being, more of that infinite cosmic being that we really are, more of that inner pure consciousness that we experience on the intuitive level.
Yeah. So let me make sure that I understand this correctly. What
Okay.
I'm hearing there is you're always creating your life all the time. There's never a moment where your life is not being created. The difference between the person who lives out their pre-programmed destiny, which is the conditioning that they were raised with, versus the one who actually creates the life of their dreams is a moment between reacting and responding. To when you're feeling this trigger moment, when you're feeling this moment where you have this, as you describe it, this opportunity, this peak memory moment where you can make a choice. You can step back, take a breath, go within, and actually, rather than identifying with what's happening, you experience what's happening. And then in that moment, as you find more of as you come more to your center, you can make a choice. You can say, no, this guy is not here to diminish my worth and to attack me personally. What he's saying is just the expression of his own consciousness of whatever he has experienced. It has nothing to do with me, not at all. I am enjoying a beautiful day with this gorgeous woman here, and I'm having the time of my life. And this is what I choose. And so, are you saying that is the process of continuously creating the life that you desire?
Yes, yes. You said that very brilliantly, Mario. You covered a lot of the main points there in a very articulate way. So thank you. And the key is that a lot of people, well, in the Newtonian universe, everything happened through linear cause and effect on a mechanical level. Well, that Newtonian universe didn't fit reality when quantum mechanics came along. The observer influences the observed. We, in a very real sense, in quantum mechanical terms, the way we look determines what we see, and the way we resonate on the level of our consciousness determines what we radiate out into the universe and what creates our life. And that sounds very abstract, but it's something we showed in the laboratory. You can shift the probability distribution of quantum mechanical events by having that resonance on the level of your consciousness. And that's what creates your life. So the difference, as you've said, between someone who lives a created life and someone who lives a reacted reactive life that just is the victim of circumstance, is consciously engaging in that process of creation. And a key to that is when you have these murmur moments, when something comes along that seems to be a downer on your value, power, or safety. In fact, it's a benefit. I mean, what you'll find is as you practice this, that when something comes along that really triggers, it really gets to you, you'll start to get a little smile on your face because, aha, this is an opportunity. This is not a threat. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to attune my awareness to my true nature and to shift more towards the true blueprint that I have, 100% safe, powerful, and valuable. And there are also, that's something you can do simply on the fly as you go about your life. There are also techniques that I've developed which are more meditative, where you would take 20 minutes out, you would take a pause from life and experience this inward phenomenon, and then apply that through your awareness. What I've described just now and what you and I described is something that you can do on the fly, a way to live life ongoingly. And then there are times when you want to take an inward stroke, a meditative stroke of life, and more thoroughly contact that inner realm and set up the resonances there, which are then going to propagate throughout your life, throughout a period in the future.
One thing that I'm really curious to hear from you is you were just describing how in the quantum realm we are continuously influencing the events and experiences that are happening in our lives. And so if I wanted to, let's say, create the world where I'm a multimillionaire and I am making an impact on millions of lives all around the world of people, helping them transform their lives.
Yes.
And let's just say I want to go there and I want to shorten the distance between, well, in the quantum, there's no distance. So I want to manifest it quicker. I want to have it be here faster. And maybe that question itself is already what's keeping it at bay. But I understand there are people in world, for instance, like a Maharishi, that, from what I understand, have the power to instantly move the quantum field with such a strong force of energy that things will instantly appear in the 3D world. So what would you say? First of all, would you agree? And second, if so, how do you get there? What does it look like?
Okay. A couple of things. First of all, with respect to the phenomenon you've just described, science of creating miracles, which is what I specialize in, is about creating, from the level of your consciousness, creating improbable events. Now, I'll give you an example of a miracle, not a very big one. Let's say I want an apple, and then we'll get to the bigger ones. Let's say I want an apple.
Mhm.
Okay, I go to my job, I make some money, I come home, I drive to the store, I go inside the store, and it's not apple season. So it's an improbable event I'll find an apple, but lo and behold, even though it's not apple season, they've got apples in the store, I buy an apple and I take it home. I've got an apple. So you could say that's a very minor miracle. I created an improbable event. Now, if you have a higher level of attunement with consciousness, higher level of attunement with a conscious unified field, remember the intellect screams, the emotions shout, or the intellect shouts, the emotions scream, the intuition whispers. If you're more attuned to that quiet level within yourself, if your awareness is closer to the conscious unified field that creates the whole universe, then you'd be sitting at home and you say, well, I'd really like an apple. And the knock comes on the door. It's your best friend. He says, hey, Mario, I've just happened to have a basket of apples here. Why don't you have it? Now, if you're at a closer attunement to the conscious unified field, you're sitting in your backyard, an apple truck drives by, hits a bump, an apple bounces out onto your table. If you have a full attunement with the conscious unified field, you can simply say apple, and you've got the apple there. that is a configuration of quantum particle wave phenomena. There's a finite probability that that's going to be there at that time and space. And we showed in the laboratory you can create highly improbable events, quantum mechanical events. The whole universe is just configurations of quantum particle phenomena, and we can influence that from the level of our consciousness. So what's the critical variable? There are several. One critical variable is depth. We're talking about manifestation here now. There are a lot of techniques out there, or a lot of teachings out there, which say, well, okay, you just think about it and it happens. Now, if it were that simple, we'd each write all this stuff on a piece of paper. We'd put it by our mirror in the morning, and by tomorrow morning, we'd all be billionaires with a world following and a world creating a perfect world and a perfect relationship and I don't know what else, a big yacht, whatever, whatever. Now, there's some progress to take place from the place most people are at to the place where you could create an apple in your palm. And the key factors are several in manifestation. One of them is clarity of vision. Now, clarity of vision is not the same thing as specificity of result. Let's say you think, well, I'd really want $1 million. That's a pretty specific result. But what is life? Isn't events, life is experiences. So what is the experience that a person is seeking for $1 million? Do you want $1 million so you can buy fancy cars and impress people? Do you want $1 million so you can have freedom to do what you want? Do you have $1 million so you can make a difference to the causes that you care about? Do you have $1 million so you can be generous with other people? There are all kinds of experiences that $1 million is supposed to represent. So in creating an inner vision, it's important to create a vision of the experience one desires rather than the external thing that we think might bring us that experience. So clarity of vision is one thing. Another really important factor that is often overlooked or not understood is depth of experience. Because if we have that subtle impulse on the very quiet level of consciousness, very close to the conscious unified field, it moves the conscious unified field, of which the whole universe is simply an expression, and it creates a powerful effect. If we're at a more superficial level, then the impact will be less. So attuning to the quiet levels within yourself, as I described a little bit earlier, both on the fly day to day, when you have a murmur moment or an aha experience, and then through practices. Well, transcendental meditation is one practice very effectively and efficiently gets you to that field of pure consciousness. All of the techniques of science of creating miracles that I've developed also, they have that effect of taking the awareness inward and attuning to that within yourself. And me talking about it here is not the same as having the experience. It's those things are experientially guided. So depth of experience is critical. If you have it at a deep enough experience, those people who can walk on water, turn water to wine, and those kind of things, that's at the level of full attunement with the conscious unified field, a very high level of miracles. Depth of experience is critical for that. Another factor that is critical is effortlessness, because any impulse that you make to try to get yourself to a field of silence where there are no impulses, but just infinite potential. The conscious unified field, your own inner consciousness, any impulse you make to try to get you, it takes you the opposite direction. So there are a lot of techniques of concentration and pushing and straining that actually don't get the result that they're aiming for, because they don't take advantage of the natural tendency of the mind to go to a field of greater happiness. So all of the techniques for getting to attune with yourself that are really effective have to do with letting go, not with holding on. With letting go and letting go. I mean, in that experience where I first experienced my life for what it really is, and myself, my unbounded self, for who I really am, I got there by letting go of everything. And that was the impetus for me to be able to tune into what's left when you let go of everything. So effortlessness is critical. Letting go, not holding on. Intuit, again, the intellect shouts, the emotions scream, the intuition whispers. Tuning in quietly to that quiet whisper within yourself is always an effortless process. So effortlessness is key to creating manifestation. And another important factor is support of nature. You described a very wonderful vision of what you, if you could truly create the life you want, and of course that's the life you're creating. So my hat is off to you for that. Truly creating the life you want was a magnificent vision that was great for you and wonderful for everyone in the universe and wonderful for all conscious beings. Now, let's say that you start out with a desire that's not so in tune with nature. So my initial knee-jerk response, okay, well, what I want is I want to pick up this boat bumper and I want to throw it at the guy and knock him out of his kayak. That's my desire here. Well, support of nature depends on how attuned you are to nature, your own nature, which is the same as the conscious unified field, the same as the nature of nature. So if you take a more superficial and out of tune with nature desire, and you experience yourself, and you experience that on a subtler and subtler level, you discover that when you get down to the desire, or up to the desire that's truly in tune with nature, it's going to be something harmonious. You support nature, and nature will support you. So we have some superficial responses sometimes that are out of tune with nature, but when you tune into yourself, when you tune into your own nature, your own true nature, you're tuning into nature's true nature, and the desires you have at that quiet whisper level are in tune with nature. They're supportive of life. They're supportive of you. They're supportive of the true you, and they are supportive of all conscious living beings. So supportive nature is key for manifestation, and that comes about through attunement with your own self, through attunement with your own inner consciousness. The closer you are to your true self, the closer your own true resonant frequency, the closer you are to the resonant frequency of nature and the nature of nature. So those are the factors that go into the process of manifestation.
I love it. I'm learning. I'm learning a lot, and it's funny. A story that I've never shared publicly. When I first got into the world of manifestation, and I remember I read the book. One of the first books I read was Think and Grow Rich. I became obsessed with trying this out. With it's like, okay, well then, pretty much what I'm told here is that I can manifest anything that I want. I was like, okay, so let me focus on winning the lottery, because if I win the lottery, I'm going to be dedicating my life just to helping and just to and so here's what happened. So I took it to a whole nother level, and I, for a few days, I did play the lottery. I pretended that I won the lottery. I pretended that that was already real. And so I woke up in the morning, just with a beaming smile, getting out of bed, dancing like I'm a millionaire, like just all kinds of things that I told myself I would do if I had already won. And so then the day came of the lottery numbers. And here's the crazy thing that happened, Larry. All of the 6 numbers were one off the number that they pulled. The whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I was one off each number. I came this close. And then what I made it mean was like, it doesn't work. But then many years later, I look back and I was like, wow, look at how close I came. There was clearly, a level of attunement that I hadn't yet reached at that time. But look how close I already came with the efforts that I put in place. So,
Yeah.
and obviously, many things that you said today actually play around with this quite frequently, where I'm like, I'd like this person to reach out to me. And so what I do is I just feel them. I just feel them. I just feel in my heart the name of the person, and I see them, and I'm sometimes that same day I get a message, sometimes within a minute or so, bing, it pops up, sometimes the next day. But I agree with what you're saying. And Now, I do want to bring in another element. You talk about the real self or the higher self. And in my experience, and there's still some residue of that left for sure, my nature is that of a high performer, a go getter, winner, get to the top. And so I created a lot of that in my life through pushing, through force, through just going hard at it. And I tried to do the same with these techniques that we talked about. And I had a profound experience last year when I went to the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, where he talks very similar topics that you speak about. And he was saying in the meditation, the most important part is to surrender, is to let go. And I was like, all right, so I'm there 45 minutes in, and I'm like, it's like, come on, just, I want that experience, that bliss, that joy. And it wasn't happening. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to let it go. Whatever. I just let it all go. And within an instant, bam, it was just like this incredible tunnel of light opening up and my heart beaming with love. And the experience lasted for a few moments, and then I was like, yes, I got it. And the moment I did that, it disappeared again. And so it was very challenging for me to really focus on letting go and surrendering. So I'd love for you to speak into this phenomena of, the high performer pushing hard, because a lot of my listeners are in that category because they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners. And so they follow these principles of, work hard, play hard. You got to work, in order to get the results, it requires hard work. And there's a lot of hard. And where I'm leaning more and more to is what you were describing, which is that sense of effortlessness. So can you speak into this phenomena that I just described?
Yes, I certainly can. And I'll go back to the very first thing that you said, and I'll get into some of the other points you raised. You said that your nature was as a high achiever, and we were talking about the infinite, eternal being beyond time and space, the pure consciousness, your true nature, the one with a conscious unified field. Well, there are two aspects to our nature. We are, on one level, we are all one. There is the level of the conscious unified field, pure consciousness, infinite, unbounded being beyond time and space. But we also have our individual nature. Your nature is somewhat
Right.
different from mine. I love boats. I like blue shirts. Now, someone else may have, they may like motorcycles. I like guitars. I have one right here. Uh, I like to sing and play guitar. Someone else might like roller skating. Somebody else might like. Now, we have our own individual resonance. Like you pluck a string on a guitar, it has its own resonant frequency. Now, your individual highest resonant frequency is different from mine. They may be very compatible and harmonious. So being, if your individual true essence on the individual level is go-getter and achiever and get out there and be active and work hard and do a lot of things and create a lot of effect, that's a real thing. That is, not everyone is that way, but when that is your nature, that's your individual nature. And then on another level, you're this infinite, unbounded intelligence on a deeper level. And so
Right.
it's not the case that we should eschew being active and being dynamic and working hard and going out and getting things. However, there's another side to the coin. And the other side to the coin is that along with that dynamic activity and focusing the mind and using the body, along with that, there can be the inner silence. There can be a level at which we're resonating very quietly, a level at which we're letting go. For example, in Kung Fu, I have a black belt in Kung Fu. I've taught Kung Fu for many years. And all of the really great martial artists that I've met have the ability to be very quiet within, but that doesn't mean that they're quiet outside. I mean, when the fists and the feet are flying, having that inner silence. So paradoxically, the highest skill in action involves having that inner quietness, being attuned to your intuition, having a sense of the energetic dynamics of what's going on, and that can guide you even when you're in the midst of dynamic activity, kicking and feet and hands flying, or in the midst of dynamic business activity. So it's sort of a paradox, because I mean, Confucius said, "There's no truth outside of paradox." It's sort of a paradox because the inner silence supports that outer activity. And the ideal life incorporates both of those. When you're in a process like you described, a meditative process, where the idea is to become attuned to your true self, attuned to your own inner consciousness, then letting go is a path. But if you're doing push-ups, no, you push harder, it develops your triceps more. You don't get that. You don't get the triceps just from the inner silence. So cultivating both of those
Right.
and integrating the two of those into an integrated life, I think, is the key.
So we're speaking about the yin and yang, the
Yes.
feminine and the masculine, if you will.
Yes.
Hmm. What are, besides meditation, what would you say are some of the most important daily practices that somebody can cultivate that help them move into this state of harmony, into the state of integration?
Okay. Well, meditation, yes. Now, meditation, the word meditation has been used to mean a lot of different things. So there are different techniques of meditation have different benefits, and uh, the ideal kinds of meditation work on the principle of effortlessness and taking the awareness within spontaneously to quieter and quieter levels. There are some things that are called quote unquote meditation that don't do that, and therefore are not as effective in getting you to the state of unbounded awareness that's the goal of meditation. However, aside from meditation, as a neuroscientist, I recognize, as all neuroscientists do, that your experience of life is going to depend on the functioning of your nervous system. So the better your nervous system is functioning, the more consciousness you're going to have. So anything you can do to improve the functioning of your nervous system is going to improve your experience of life. Now, meditation is one thing. Having a healthy diet is good. Getting enough sleep, getting enough rest, getting exercise, getting fresh air, being in harmonious environments, being in life supporting environments, being around people who resonate with you and who resonate with nature, being in harmonious environments and harmonious relationships, not being in toxic environments, toxic relationships, toxic food, toxic air, and so on. All of those things improve the functioning of your nervous system. That improves your nervous system doing what it's designed to do, which is to reflect consciousness. There's another aspect to the way we live. You mentioned centering at one point. If you are on a teeter-totter, you're out at the end of the teeter-totter, you're going to fly up and down a lot. When people are experiencing a lot of ups and downs in their lives, they're out at the end of some teeter-totter. Remember, we used to go on the teeter-totter. I would push off my feet, I'd shoot up, and the other guy would hit the bottom, and I'd go flying off the top. And then when I came down, I'd hit the ground. A lot of ups and downs means you're out at the end of a teeter-totter. Now, if you come to the balance point within yourself, all of this activity can be going on, and yet you can maintain balance. If you're on one of those little merry-go-round things that go around in a circle, you push them from the side, and as they go around, you hold on to them, and the centrifugal force pulls you. You're going to be subject to all that force when you're out on the edge. If you step to the middle, all this activity can be going on, and you can have a balance point. If you're in a hurricane, if you're being battered by the winds in a hurricane, you move to the center. The eye of the hurricane is still. And so moving to the center, your own center within your life, experiencing your own inner sense of who you are, what it feels like to be you, not just how am I responding to this person? What's this person thinking? What am I thinking? What am I doing? On the level of being, tuning into your own center allows you to not be buffeted by the change, by the winds of the hurricane. So that's another thing that you can do to cultivate this state of equanimity, this state of balance. But another way of looking at that has to do with a process that I call transmutation. There is a lot of talk out there and a lot of techniques, some of them very valuable, for transmutation. Transmutation, like you have a statue made of brass and you change transformation. There's a lot of talk about transformation. You have a statue made out of brass and you change the form of it. It's a different shaped statue. It's still made of brass. Transmutation comes from alchemy. The idea is to transmute originally base metals to gold, or metaphorically, transmute your life. There are all kinds of techniques out there for transforming, changing the form of your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitudes, your self-image, your emotions. Transmutation involves creating a fundamental shift in who's creating the thoughts, emotions, attitudes, and so on. It comes from tuning into your unbounded self, to your true self, to the conscious unified field within yourself. So transmutation takes place at a more fundamental level than transformation, and it's the fundamental way that you can attune yourself to that being within yourself who can create the miracles in your life.
It's interesting because before you were even talking about alchemy, that word came through strongly. And this is something that I have been experimenting quite a lot, and it's something that I'm also teaching in my coaching containers. And
yes,
I find it is challenging to teach because you have to. I believe you have to have an experience where you get to this level of surrender at the same time being the experiencer of that, where you allow these energies to move inside of you. And for somebody who has never experienced that, it's I find it's hard to grasp, because it's like, yeah, just explain to me, what do I need to do? Do I need to like change the picture in my mind? And this actually has very little to do with the mind. I find it's this natural process of allowing things to move and shift within you, like almost the elements transforming themselves from lead to gold. And as we come to the end of our conversation, I have a few more questions that I really want to ask you, and I also want to know about your retreat. That's definitely something that's on my radar. I want to come to one of your retreats, but before we get there, I'm very curious how you're going to answer this question. If you could spend an hour of your time with any human being, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Actually, I've got two answers to that. One is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's no longer alive, and I spent many hours. In fact, I spent many years. He is the one who really taught me the knowledge and the experience of higher states of consciousness. And so, if I could have another hour with him, that would probably be my first choice. Now, two others come to mind, and one is Jesus, because I think at the foundation of every great spiritual tradition, certainly including the Christian tradition, was that fundamental experience. And I would love to be able to spend an hour with him. I'm sure that he wasn't just talking about it. I'm sure he had specific techniques. And if you read into the Bible, you can see he was talking about the experience. And I think at the foundation of every great spiritual tradition is the same experience of unbounded consciousness, described in different ways, in different metaphors, in different times and places. But I think if you got Krishna and Maharishi and Jesus and all of the other great, and Buddha and all of the other great spiritual teachers throughout the ages, got them all in the same room, they'd all be saying, yeah, we're talking about the same thing from a different point of view, a different angle.
What an event that would be! All of these great spiritual teachers in one room.
Yeah.
I would be there right with you. Larry, tell us about your retreat. what is the experience like there? What's the focus of the retreat? What are people getting out of it?
All right. Well, today we have talked about manifestation. We have talked about the science of creating miracles. We've talked about the research I've done. We've talked about some of the principles. We've given a few hints about things that you can experience in your life. What takes place on these Science of Creating Miracles retreats is we get to go deeply into the experience of creating miracles over a period of days, 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days sometimes. And instead of simply talking about it, I systematically guide people in the experience of the science of creating miracles, in the experience within of pure consciousness, and then the experience within of developing formulas on that level, developing resonance on that level, and bringing that resonance out into your life. So what people have reported is that it's a major transmutation in their life. It's a major turning point in their life from hearing about all this stuff and thinking about this stuff and attempting this stuff of manifesting the life of your dreams to actually experiencing that inner realm on an experiential level over a span of time in a hologram created by a group of people together on the level of consciousness, so that it creates a turning point in your life, so that from there life flows more smoothly. The process of manifesting, the process of creating an inner vision and then having that come out into your life becomes more fully established, and people find that their life simply flows. They have some desire, some intention, and then that nature collaborates with that and cooperates with that throughout their life afterwards. It takes several days to get into that experiential phenomenon, and yet it's a shift that will last for the rest of your life.
Beautiful. Tell us how people can find out more about the event, and also when is the next one coming up? I believe you mentioned April.
Yes, April 24th through the 27th is the next retreat I have. I do have them regularly. My website is drlarryfarwell.com, drlarryfarwell.com. From there, there's a link to my retreat website, which is thescienceofcreatingmiracles.com. But if you get to drlarryfarwell.com, drlarryfarwell.com, you'll be able to link from there to everything about all of the programs that I have, the individual consulting that I do, the mentoring that I do, the retreats, and all of those things are on drlarryfarwell.com.
Beautiful. My personal recommendation to anybody listening, do yourself a favor, grab his book, check out the website if you can, secure a spot at the retreat. I will certainly be at one of the upcoming retreats. Larry, thank you so much for sharing your presence, your stories, your insights, and your being here with all of us today. And I hope it won't be the last conversation. I feel it won't be the last conversation. And I will I'll invite you to leave the last words for our listeners.
All right. First of all, Mario, thank you so much for having me here. It's always a delight. We've had deep conversations before, and it's a delight here to be able to share them with your listeners. And I would say, come attuned to yourself, know yourself, and love yourself.
That's a beautiful message to complete. And with that, we end the show. Thank you, my dear friend, for being a loyal listener of the Zenpreneur podcast. And I will see you on the next episode.